everybody. I'm Lois Vossen, the executive producer of Independent Lens, and I'm thrilled to be here with my colleague, Keri.
Hey, y'all. I'm Keri Brown with ITVS. I'm Director of Content and Initiatives. I'm really looking forward to talking with you today. I'll throw it back to Lois. I think you were about to say something else.
Well, I was just going to say we're thrilled to be here with Feng, the director of Hidden Letters, which is a film that we were very proud to support at ITVS through 2 different funding initiatives, and of course are really excited to premiere on our series Independent Lens. And I'm curious, Keri, when the project first came in, what fund did it come in through, and what was the initial response?
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this today. Violet submitted her project through the Diversity Development Fund, which we call DDF internally at ITVS. And that's a fund that supports filmmakers of color in the development and research stage of their projects and really getting them prepared for funding through our production pipelines, which normally means going through open call, through ITVS's open call. And Violet's project is an international project slated for a US audience. And that, of course, is always a part of the conversation as projects are submitted through any of our funding initiatives, since they will be going to public television. So for me, I was just really excited about this project. I saw a lot of similarities between the experiences that Violet was sharing through Nushu and through this women-only language that came up in China, and the experience of African Americans in the US and what secret languages meant for us, and also for our independence, our agency, our finding our freedom, our voices, and what that looked like. And so for me, that was really the tie-in and the entry point for me to understand this story and really come to love this story. And so a lot of the work that we did around development support and around story support with Violet was, what does this look like? And what does bridging this conversation look like with a US audience? And how do we help people understand the similar challenges, both in that story and in our own history in the US? And then thinking about also what that meant as being women as well, and what sisterhood and support of each other looks like, and how that supports us, again, finding our own voices and living out our own journeys independently in the way that we desire to live them out. So
yeah,
I was so beautifully said.
I grew up in a rural community where, as a girl, none of the women had first names. Everybody was Mrs. Alberts, Mrs. John. I literally didn't know any of the women's names because they were always Mrs. So-and-so. And when I remember when Violet, I talked to you about the project at Hot Docs. And it was before you applied to ITVS, and you were just, sort of talking about why it was so important to you. And I remember thinking women historically have always found ways to have a secret language to support each other and to get through, the patriarchy that has been such a part of culture forever. But we're curious, Violet, why did you choose public media? Why did you think that was the place for this film?
So I think for the longest time of my career that trying to tell Chinese stories, that I think the importance of bridging the gap of understandings and the importance of telling the story that's both unique and also universal. And I think I don't take it for granted that as a Chinese filmmaker, the story that I make about China will be instantly connected to folks here. But I also see the damage of mainstream media, of how it's portrayed in China in a way of building the disconnection and building the discrimination and the stereotypes against people in my country, and also against stories in my countries. And I find it so important to just ground people in the people level. I mean, in here, the story is about women's experiences in China, but one of the most famous feminist activists, Robin Morgan, was saying, for women, the more personal of our experiences, every personal experience is political, and this is true, and it's not just about China, it's everywhere. So I particularly really wanted to reach the public broadcasting audience, because I felt like they're the ones who not necessarily have a very authentic understanding about China, and stories like this to give a sense of what in-depth story, because I don't really see there are stories about women rights about China that often that come up to the surface. So it's finding a way to connect to them in a way that they also feel emotionally connected to me is a mission. And I think as a filmmaker, it's my responsibility to bridge that gap and to take that extra step for people to like find interesting of a remote culture and remote people, and especially right now like where Asian women are so much in the picture of a particular kind of image, and there's so much work to be done. And I really see this film as an opportunity to help people understand a different image of Asian women, and what are the struggles that we're going through actually are similar to everyone else in this world.
Yeah, I think that's so true. The very individual story, how it becomes so universal. I mean, if you look at what's happening in Iran, women fighting for their rights, what's happening in our country in terms of recent setbacks, and it is a universal story, and yet so beautifully told in your film. I'm curious, Keri. Obviously, then it went through, a round of support from ITVS, and it went through open call. What can you say about that process?
Can I say something before?
A lot of prep
Yes.
for open call.
Can I say something before, Keri? I think that we also built our own kind of sisterhood during that process. Keri, do you agree?
You agree, Violet? Yes. No, it was really great, and I think, open call, we really invite a lot of voices into open call, partners, external partners to work with around open call. And so you really never know, because it's a different group each round, how a project is going to be received. And we really looked at, for specifically this project, how to give enough context for an American audience to really unlock and deepen their understanding of what both the journeys of both of the participants in the film. There's two key participants that are being followed. So what their journey was, and then also from Violet's perspective, what was really important for us to walk away with as an audience, really understanding. And so there was a lot of context working on how much of that was really needed to really deepen the understanding of the story in this perspective. And then, a lot of it too, leaning into these really universal themes. So around this sisterhood, around having different pathways forward and what that looked like for each of the people within the film. There's not one path. And so I think that was really important too, to understand. And also we talked a lot about, kind of Violet's thinking around what feminism looked like and how to share that particular thinking around that feminism. And maybe Violet, you can share a little bit of what that meant for you.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like these women represent a different kind of feminism in my eyes, because, it's really coming out through a way of building community together, really coming through a way of building sisterhood together, and then finding a space for us to be vulnerable, which is, I think, kind of in the way that it's very different from things are. I see things are here because, like being in the US, and I felt like, in other Western countries, there's so many kind of expectations for women to be perfect in every single regard. And in a way that it actually make us more strong on the outside, but, like kind of suppress us to be vulnerable, and then to share the vulnerability, and to share that actually this is like impossible for us to check all the boxes. And I think that, this space of Nushu, where women come together and then allowing them to be vulnerable and to share their sufferings is so powerful. And I think that actually there's power to be said to come out from that space. And when we are all together and just say that, we are enough as we are, like don't label us like we have to be all of these. So I think that that's my understanding of what they created. And actually what I find it fascinating is these women actually did shift narratives, because over the years, because of the structure of really well thought out sisterhood that they built, and like these women are regarded with more respect even by men in these little villages. And I thought it was really, really powerful. And how do we replicate that, and then even taking that as a legacy for women today, and to share among us. And that's actually what we're doing with our impact campaign, to rebuild a sisterhood and allowing us to express what we dare not to say. in different kind of art forms. And I think that has power from within.
It has
Yeah,
so
and
much
I would
power.
it has so much power. And I would just say too, Violet, as you're speaking about that, the sense of deep reflection that's also present both in the film and within the main participants. There's sort of a space within the film
Yes.
also to reflect and to like set our own expectations for ourselves versus having the outside set the expectations, right? And even in the sisterhood, you might have different expectations, and it was okay to honor those. And so I just feel like that was also something that was really special and something for us to think about, in terms of where we're headed as a nation, where we're headed, just as women in community with each other from across the world. That time for reflection and that time to sort of decide for self was really important and really beautiful within the film,
And I
and
have to
also felt
say,
very universal.
sorry, and I say that, the reflection is a space to allow us to be honest. Honesty, I felt like, is so important for women to explore our space of where we are and where we want to be. And I am hoping that this film, that I'm actually presenting the space from a place of honesty, and also representing these women with true honesty of where they are internally and externally, of the pressures they're dealing with.
Yeah, I agree. The pressures to live up to these expectations that become so almost insurmountable that women then find themselves like playing this game of trying to, as you say, check all the boxes. And so the opportunity to reflect and get back to what we actually want, and then to accept that with each other, is pretty extraordinary. What's all happening with your engagement campaign?
I think it's going really well. So each month we're featuring one female artist who's using their art to create impact and using their art to share their own expressions. And so we're, like, I want this film not just to elevate the film itself and the people in the film, but also really elevate all women who are doing similar work. So like along the campaign, we are hoping to feature and then elevate these women, and also the work that they're doing, and then the impact they're making on other women and the communities that they're building. So while celebrating that, we're opening our own virtual gallery initiative that we're opening to all women to create all different kind of arts. And we specifically want women who doesn't call themselves artists to create artwork, and then to use any kind of art to share what they dare not to share otherwise. And they can submit it to us. It's a very simple process, and it can just submit to our website, and it will be the deadline is the next year, March 15th. And in April, we're going to have our own virtual gallery to celebrate all these works submitted by women from all over the world, no matter what their socioeconomic background, cultural background, or language that they speak. We wanted to celebrate all of that, and in that to create our own unique global space for sisterhood. And that's also leading up to the Independent Lens broadcast premiere.
And streaming, broadcast and streaming. We're really trying to stress that people can see these incredible films, not just on PBS Linear, but on the PBS app and on pbs.org. So I love that dare to share. I really love that idea, because I think that is extraordinarily, just forward thinking in terms of giving women that opportunity.
Lois, it would be great to hear from your perspective, from Independent Lens, what really drew you in around this particular film, and how do you see that?
Yeah, first of all, I was intrigued by the time, from the time that Violet told me about the film at Hot Docs. I was like, I had heard about different sisterhoods and different secret languages, and we'd had films that looked at Native American languages and different ways that women had always found to make community, but I had never heard this story. It was new to me, and I love when that happens. I love when it's something that's brand new that we've never talked about. I just think that's such an incredible opportunity to bring to audiences. So I loved it from the beginning in terms of that idea. And then as it went through the production cycle, and I remember the first time I saw a cut, it was really clear. Violet, I hope I'm not giving away secrets here, but Violet is a brilliant producer, and she had produced several really extraordinary documentaries. And this was her first time directing. And so we'd also had a conversation about what it means to move from producing to directing. And And when I saw the cut, it was clear that she's as masterful as a director as she was a producer. And that was not that I doubted it, but it was really wonderful to see how she had grown into that role as well. I also really feel as though the film has extraordinary connection with American audiences, especially not just women, but anybody who's interested in women fulfilling their dreams and becoming their best and fullest selves. And there's a lot of men out there who are invested in that and want that to happen. So I never try to say this is just for women, because I think I was just talking to a coworker a few minutes ago who just saw the film here at ITVS, and he was talking about how moved he was by the film. And, and so for me, it was all of those things. It was our commitment to women filmmakers and to women directors. And then it was watching this particular female director come into her own, and of course the story, and then these connections. And at the time, different things had not happened globally, but it was clear that there will always be a struggle for women and equality. I recently watched the Sinead O'Connor documentary, and when you look at what women in Ireland went through for centuries in terms of oppression, it is such a universal story with deep connections to our country. And on top of that, what Violet just spoke of, which is the particular realities facing Asian women right now in the world. And so there was no reason to not love the film. And there was all those reasons to want to have it come to independent lens. So it was one of the easiest yeses ever. And then she continued to work on the film, and it just got stronger and stronger.
I have to say that I really wanted to mention that how easy this collaboration has been since the very beginning, since the first day I met Keri till where it is now, and the level of support that I've received from amazing people. And then it has been a really smooth and then a really wonderful collaboration. And I think it comes from your openness to also to understand from my perspective of what I try to achieve, and have the faith and trust in me to give me the space to allow that to come forward. And I think that it showed, the trust that you guys had in me, give me so much space and freedom to deliver the final film to you.
Well,
I love that you say that.
Yeah, I keep telling Violet that she's like, I want to clone her. She's like the ideal person to work with, because she's so self-assured and so professional, and yet so open to collaboration and eager to work in collaboration, knowing that we will always just want to elevate your voice. We don't want to dictate to you. We just want to elevate your voice. And you were so responsive in that way, and have always been in any project I've worked with you on, but in this film in particular. And so, it's just a delight. I do want to give a quick shout out to Michael Kinomoto, the supervising producer on Hidden Letters, for his great, brilliant, steadfast work. But it always comes back to the director, really. I mean, it really comes back to your commitment to tell that story in as authentic a way as possible. And you were so, even when you weren't sure, you were clear, if that makes sense.
Well, I was actually going to correct you that I'm actually not really self-assured, and I always constantly doubt myself. But I think it's because of that doubt allows me to really listen to, the input that you guys give me. And also, and also that doubt is also, I think, represent my own honesty, that, I wanted to making sure that this is the work that represent the voice of these women, and all the women in it.
Maybe the word when you said determination. Your determination is the word.
Unlimited. Violet has so much energy and determination. I feel like it is unlimited. But it was, when you said that, made me think, Lois, about Violet's creative process. And really, I was thinking about the visual aesthetic Violet. And there was a lot of play happening in the development stage, right? Because it's when you get to have the chance to play and figure out, how did you want to represent patriarchy, going from it not being a person, but also talking about, what was happening around and the types of classes, little girls were being instructed to take and things like that. I loved how you were open and playing and thinking about what are these different artistic aesthetics that I can bring in. And, you know, there's some that you were like, you kind of pivoted away from, maybe not so much that, but like, let me lean into this. And what you ended up with was so beautiful. And it made me think also around independent lens and pushing, you know, what different aesthetics can look like. That I'm sure, you know, that is also a part of the attraction between, you know, what fits and makes sense also as an IL film, and having this sort of like different aesthetic that you have, and this beauty and these lyrical moments that are also happening within the film. And I won't spoil them. I'll let you all talk about them, but it
But
was really fun to see
absolutely.
that process and you kind of get to this place to develop that.
Yeah, and I won't spoil it either because audiences will see for themselves. But I think that unique, and I do want to say it's the determination of this particular director and other great directors, but that determination to keep going through the unknown and the questions and the self-discovery that is so exciting. And when it comes out this beautifully, and to your point, Keri, we are always looking for films that have that, you know, challenge those aesthetics and that bring a different kind of storytelling to the forefront. And this film does that.
It's so wonderful to talk to you both, and I mean, I just love you guys.
Well,
We had
we
so
love
much
you
fun.
too. It's,
Yes.
I mean, it really is, it's such a pleasure to work with filmmakers, and filmmakers like you really are the joy of the job. Each of those new projects, when they come forward, I think we always joke here, it's like Christmas when we get to open these new beautiful presents and watch just the wonder of creating something. I remember being with you when the film premiered at Tribeca and the wonderful panel that we had, and just listening to that audience as they discovered the film for the first time. And, you know, it was wonderful to be there with Gloria Steinem and all these great people, but everybody in the audience was like discovering how this film spoke to them. And that's just such a great thing to be a part of.
And I also wanted to give you guys some confidence because I just toured around in all the Midwest festivals, and people really came to me. It's like, oh my God, this film really speaks to us. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the audience I wanted to target.
Well, I said to
really
Violet that you won at Heartland. That's wonderful to have a film about women in China win at the Heartland Film Festival in Indianapolis, and all the other festivals where you've been playing and done so well, Hot Springs and
And we
Arkansas.
just yesterday we also won at Hot Springs and Audience Choice Award.
See, that's just like that answers the question. I mean, right there, the fact that audiences across the country, not just in New York or San Francisco, but in literally the heartland, see themselves in your film. That is a testament to a great storyteller.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. You all had your magic hands in this.
Thank
we're
you,
so
Violet, and
excited.
trusting us.
Yeah, for being your partner. It takes trust on both sides. Absolutely. Well, we're really thrilled that you're out there now in festivals sharing the film with audiences across the country. And then, you know, we're really looking forward to that national premiere where everybody in America can see it for free on PBS and Independent Lens.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to have this conversation with you guys, and I can't wait to see you in person soon.
See you very
us
soon,
too.
we hope.
Let's see you soon. Yeah.
Have a great time on the
Okay.
festival circuit until we see each other.
Thank you. Bye.